Discover the incredible love that was hidden, a billionaire exposed by a chance blind date. Sarah took a deep breath, the evening air crisp and filled with the scent of fried chicken. She glanced at her reflection in the window. A moment of hesitation washed over her. Did a woman like her, a waitress in a small Midwestern town, really belong on a date with someone like him? A billionaire? But what choice did she have? Her friend from the diner had set this up, and in a way, it felt like the universe was nudging her towards something different, a spark that could light up her life and guide her son Alex to a brighter future. As she stepped into the quaint little restaurant, the buzz of laughter and chatter washed over her, mixing with the smell of comfort food. At the table, across from her, sat Ethan, a man with tousled hair and an easy smile that drew her in immediately. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the weight of her struggles to provide for Alex melted away. They shared stories, revealing layers of hope and heartbreak. She spoke of her dreams for Alex, and he spoke of the pressures of privilege that stifled his true self. Laughter bubbled between them, filling the air with a connection that felt almost electric, but as the night wore on, subtle feelings of doubt crawled into Sarah's mind. Could she, a struggling waitress, even entertain thoughts of love with a man from a different world? She caught the whispers around town the last time someone like Ethan had ventured into their lives, it hadn't ended well. The memory of tensions simmering and people pointing fingers gnawed at her. Yet, when she looked at him, she saw not just privilege but a man seeking refuge from judgment. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As their laughter danced through the restaurant, the undercurrents of the town's skepticism loomed. Just when things felt light, reality crashed like a thunderstorm. The community center, the heart of their tight-knit community, was facing closure, and whispers of betrayal filled the diner. Sarah felt the weight of her neighbors' eyes on her, scrutinizing every moment she shared with Ethan. He was an outsider, and this town didn't easily open its arms to outsiders, but when disaster struck, and the townspeople rallied together against any semblance of change, Sarah found herself standing shoulder to shoulder with Ethan. It was a moment charged with tension, hope hanging by a thread. Would they find a way to bridge the gap between their worlds? The angry voices of the crowd swirled around her, yet in Ethan's steadfast gaze, Sarah found flickers of courage. Could her love for him transcend the boundaries of class and expectation? Or would their story end up just another broken tale of the American dream? As she stared into his hopeful eyes, her heartbeat quickened, filled with both trepidation and a longing for something greater. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, thick with anxiety and disbelief. Sarah squeezed Ethan's hand, feeling the warmth of his grip, which contrasted with the coldness creeping into her stomach. The community center loomed like a fortress behind them, a place where memories were made and bonds were forged. This wasn't just a public building, it symbolized their shared history, their laughter and tears. Ethan seemed unfazed by the hostility around them. His expression was calm, yet there was a fire in his eyes, a determination that ignited a flicker of hope within her. "We can save it," he said, his voice steady above the din. "I can help fund the repairs, the programs. Just give me a chance." What would they say? Sarah whispered, glancing nervously at the faces of her neighbors, lined with suspicion and anger. "They won't accept help from someone like you." He turned to her, earnestness etched across his features. "Isn't that exactly why we should act? You know as well as I do that this place means so much to everyone. I don't want to be an outsider. I want to be part of this community." A wave of warmth enveloped Sarah. It was a change she had yearned for, not just for herself but for Alex, who needed stability. Their shared dreams had created an invisible bond between them. But standing here, hand in hand, would they have the strength to face the storm? "Look," Ethan implored, glancing back at the crowd. Every moment we stay silent, we let this place fall. Together, we can build something more. We just need to show them what is possible. His words hung in the air, charged with possibility. But Sarah felt the weight of the community's collective gaze upon her, pressing down like a vice. What if it backfires? She murmured, fear coating her voice. What if they turn on us? Ethan stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. If we don't try, we'll lose this place forever. We can't let fear dictate our choices, Sarah. Show them you stand with me. With her heart pounding like a drum, Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself against the tide of doubt. Could she really take this leap? The thought of Alex's future nudged her forward. Okay, she finally said, the single word feeling monumental. Let us do it. As they moved to the front of the crowd, a ripple of tension passed through the onlookers. Some scowled, while others exchanged uncertain glances. We're here to talk about saving the community center, Ethan called out, his voice reverberating with strength. It's not just a building, it's our past and our future. Slowly, the crowd quieted, and one old man raised a hand. And who does this city boy think he is, coming in here to save us? He challenged, voice thick with skepticism. Ethan took a step forward, unwavering. I'm someone who believes in this community. My wealth doesn't define me, my actions do. Give me a chance to prove it. Those words hung in the air like a beacon. Sarah's heart raced. Would this be the moment that shifted everything? The crowd watched with bated breath, and for the first time, hope flickered in the shadows. But just as Sarah began to feel the swell of optimism, she spotted a familiar face at the back, someone she never expected to see now, her ex-husband, the man who had walked away from their family. A chill ran down her spine, ribbons of worry spiraling through her mind. What would he say? How would he react? As her heart struggled against a storm of emotions, she realized they were stepping into a new chapter, one filled with both promise and peril. Would her decision bring them closer to salvation, or was it the spark that would light up their lives, only to leave ashes in its wake? What would happen next as everything she feared and hoped for collided? Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she locked eyes with her ex-husband, a figure from her past she had hoped never to see again. David stood there, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. The crowd felt smaller, the noise faded into a dull hum, and all that remained was the weight of his presence. Panic twisted in her gut. What was he doing here? She turned briefly to Ethan, who looked back at her with an encouraging smile, oblivious to her internal chaos. He was ready to face this moment head-on, but she felt like she was drowning in uncertainty. David had always been good at commanding attention, and she feared how he might influence this gathering. Stay strong, Ethan murmured, his thumb brushing reassuringly over her knuckles. The old man's challenge still hung in the air. What do you think you can do, city boy? We're family here. We don't need your kind. Ethan took a breath, ready to respond, but Sarah's thoughts were consumed by David, who had begun to move through the crowd, his footsteps echoing like a drum. She could see the way the tension in the onlookers grew as they recognized him. He was unsafe territory, a storm cloud edging their fragile hope. As David approached, her heart raced. She hadn't prepared for this confrontation. There was a time when he had been her everything, her partner in dreams, before everything shattered into pieces. Sarah, he called, his voice smooth like he was addressing an audience rather than a woman he once shared a life with. I didn't know you'd be here. Looking to rally the troops, are we? The slight smirk on his face sent a jolt of anger shooting through her. She straightened, forcing herself to meet his intense gaze, but it was easier said than done. We're trying to save the community center, David. It means a lot to a lot of people. He raised an eyebrow, glancing at Ethan, who had moved defensively closer to her. And you think this city boy can really help? You don't need him, he mocked lightly. You've always been capable, Sarah. There's no reason to let someone else take the reins. Ethan's eyes flickered with irritation, but he held his ground. It's not about me taking control. It's about all of us working together. That's what this place stands for. Sarah felt a pang of resentment as David's gaze drifted back to her, almost challenging her resolve. You know your history, right? You stand up for this community, yet you're here with someone who doesn't belong. You could have anyone at your side. The crowd's whispers grew louder, and Sarah could feel their collective scrutiny. She could sense them shifting, caught between her past and her present. Would they trust Ethan or see him as an outsider because of David's words? The sneer on David's face made it clear he was enjoying this. For a split second, she faltered. But then the memory of their past sent a steely determination rushing through her. I'm not letting you dictate my choices anymore, David, Sarah finally managed, her voice stronger than she felt inside. This isn't about you or me, it's about the community we both left behind. I won't let your fear keep me from moving forward. Ethan's gaze was fierce, filled with trust and admiration, fueling her resolve. There was power in reclaiming her own narrative. But the palpable tension in the crowd left Sarah wondering if she had crossed a line. As David's expression turned from smug to something darker, she took a breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Would he retaliate? Would her boldness cost her more than she realized? In that moment, Sarah knew she had ignited something intense and unpredictable. Would David's presence prove to be a catalyst for change or a threat that could tear down their fragile attempt at collaboration? Just then, a woman in the front row stood up, her voice rising above the crowd. What do you want, David? We're tired of the games. A ripple of murmurs swept through the crowd. Sarah held her breath, heart pounding, as their hopes hung precariously in the balance. The air changed suddenly, thick with tension. David's eyes narrowed, the smirk fading into a cynical line. That one woman's voice had sparked a shift, a tremor in the crowd. People shifted uneasily, like leaves rustling before a storm. Sarah could feel the pulsating energy, a mixture of fear and defiance, as eyes darted between her, David, and Ethan. Games? David echoed, his voice firm but laced with mockery. You really believe I'm the one playing games here, Nancy? He pointed sharply at the woman. I spent years trying to bring progress to this town. And you think he gestured toward Ethan, can save it with a few speeches? The crowd seemed torn. Some looked at Ethan with newfound doubt while others gripped the community's struggle tightly. Sarah felt a fire igniting within her, a fierce desire to defend what they were working so hard to protect. David, this is about the future, not the past. Sarah shot back, her heart pounding in her ears. Ethan is here because he believes in this community, not to impose his will. We're trying to build something, not destroy it. Is that so? David challenged, stepping closer, invading her space with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. You always were the one to build castles in the air. But castles crumble, Sarah. They always do. Ethan's presence right next to her steadied her, but Sarah felt the familiar weight of David's words pulling at her anxieties. Secrets from their past bubbled up, moments of vulnerability that came flooding back. Was David right? Was she just a dreamer chasing something unattainable? Enough. Ethan's voice rang out, breaking through the moment. He steadied his glare at David, his body tense like a coiled spring. If you want to throw insults, I suggest you look into the mirror first. This isn't about you or your past, David. It's about us. It's about everyone in this room who deserves better. The crowd responded with murmurs of agreement, emboldened by Ethan's words. Sarah's heart swelled at the support, at the shift in the atmosphere. Yes, they were unified. They wanted to protect what was theirs, what had always been theirs. David's lips curled in a tight smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. You really think you can take this back? He asked, his tone now colder, more calculated. There are forces at work here that you can't even begin to understand. A ripple of fear coursed through Sarah. What kind of forces was he referring to? She looked around, searching the faces in the crowd. This was more than just a community center to them. It was history, it was home. What do you mean? She stepped forward, her voice calmer but firm. What forces? David leaned toward her, the weight of years of shared history dancing in the air between them. Let us just say I have friends in high places. I'll take my chances, Ethan growled, stepping protectively closer to Sarah. The crowd's energy shifted again, creating an almost electric feel. An undercurrent of tension built as people leaned in, waiting for the next move. Sarah felt a sense of clarity amidst the chaos. This was her moment, her fight. Suddenly, a young boy stepped forward from the crowd, his small frame shivering slightly but his voice steady. Don't you want us to have a safe place to play? His eyes were wide, filled with hope. That innocent question hung in the air, silencing the noise and igniting the hearts of everyone present. There was something pure about it, something that transcended the petty adult arguments. As Sarah looked up, she saw determination in Ethan's eyes and warmth in the crowd's expressions. Maybe, just maybe, together they could stand against whatever David had brewing, but just then, David turned to the crowd, his tone dripping with sarcasm. If you think this is over, you might want to prepare for a bit of a surprise. What had he meant? What surprise could he possibly have in store? The tension thickened as Sarah's heart raced, every instinct telling her this was far from finished. She clenched her fists, ready for whatever challenge lay ahead. Would she find the strength to protect her community? Or would David unleash something that could destroy it all? The battle lines were drawn, but as she glanced at Ethan, hope blended beautifully with fear. What would they face next, and how far would they have to go to stand up for what was right? The crowd held its breath, a calm before a storm. Sarah felt the weight of expectation hanging in the air. David was like a storm cloud, dark and threatening, ready to unleash a torrent that could wash away everything they had worked for. She shifted her stance, glancing at Ethan, whose determination radiated like a beacon in the gathering gloom. Everyone deserves a place to feel safe, the boy said again, his voice breaking through the thick silence, pulling Sarah back into the moment. She didn't know his name, but his courage inspired something within her, a reminder of why they were fighting. They all wanted the same thing. A home, a future. David's smirk faltered just a bit, but then he recovered, his eyes glinting with a new kind of challenge. This place is a relic, he retorted coolly. It's a crumbling warehouse masquerading as a community center. You think words will restore its glory? Laughter erupted, but it was tinged with uncertainty. Sarah could see people waver, doubt creeping into their hearts. She had to act. They may not restore it, she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise, but words can inspire us to rebuild it. Together. Her heart raced as the murmurs of approval swelled back up, but she felt David's dark gaze pin her down. What will your precious unity do when faced with real challenges? He challenged, his tone laden with condescension. When you're met with obstacles that go beyond your understanding? What will your bravery do then? We adapt. We learn. We fight for each other. Ethan's voice rose high above the chaos, gripping the crowd's focus. And if it's a tough fight, you can count on us to face it down. His words set off a wave of nods and murmurs of agreement. A fire ignited, a spark of faith in each other's strength, but David's expression hardened. Do you not understand? He snapped, frustration bubbling to the surface. Forces are coming that none of you can combat with mere unity or faith. This town is mine. You think you know the world, but you don't. You have no idea what's coming. What could possibly be worse than losing our home? Sarah countered, her voice steady, even as her insides churned with fear. We may not have all the answers, but we've got hope. We won't back down. Each word felt like a pulse of courage in her chest, but David squinted, the wheels of his mind turning behind stormy eyes. Hope is meaningless without power, he retorted. Then, with a dramatic pause, he added, and let me show you just how powerful those forces are. The last of his sentence dropped like a well-aimed pebble into the lake of their resolve. People turned to look at one another, uncertainty mingling with something deeper, almost instinctual. "What do you mean?" A woman cried out, her voice reflecting the anxious yet hopeful crowd. "What do you know?" "I know things." David's voice was now laced with a dangerous calm. "Things that can dismantle even your finest dreams. Tomorrow, the real game begins. Forces you cannot negotiate with, confront, or even comprehend will be unleashed. And when the dust settles, you'll beg for mercy." Gasps rippled through the crowd, fear biting at their heels. But beneath that fear simmered defiance. Sarah felt adrenaline surge. They couldn't let him win. They wouldn't. Ethan gripped her shoulder, his eyes holding a fierce determination. "Whatever he's planning, it doesn't matter. We face it together." As the crowd began to rally behind them, Sarah felt a swell of unity that could pierce the fear. Could they really fight against whatever darkness David had orchestrated? "Tomorrow," she said, feeling the weight of that single word, "we'll be ready." But the question lingered in the air, heavy with uncertainty. What kind of darkness were they truly facing? What depth of fear had David unearthed, and would they be able to withstand it? As the tension hummed with unspoken fears and fierce desires, Sarah took a deep breath. Tomorrow would demand everything they had, and more. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the cracked pavement outside the community center. Sarah stood still, feeling a fragile thread of hope knitting its way around her heart. But as night fell, the reality of what lay ahead wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. The crowd began to disperse, murmurs still running through them, a blend of hope and uncertainty. "Do you really think we can hold our ground against him?" Ethan asked, watching her with anxious eyes. "I mean, what if he's right?" "What if Ethan," she interrupted, turning to him, "we can't afford to think like that. That's exactly what he wants." She squared her shoulders, channeling the energy of the crowd still weaving through her thoughts. "We need to believe in each other. That's our strength." He nodded, but the worry lingered. "What if he rolls out some unseen force? We have a plan for the center, but if he's got something else?" She could feel the weight of fear creeping back into her chest. The unknown loomed large before them, and it gnawed at her instincts. She needed to prepare, but more than that, she needed to inspire. "We will find a way to face it. If we stand together, we can take whatever comes," she replied, her voice firm. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Instead, thoughts tumbled wildly in her mind, strategies, ideas, snippets of conversations she'd had with the others. They needed a strong front. They'd need to be ready for anything. As dawn cracked, illuminating the shadows with soft light, she dragged herself up. Determination drowned her exhaustion. She would gather everyone for one final meeting. They needed to solidify their resolve. At the park, the air buzzed with the promise of a new day. Crickets faded into the soft whisper of wind as Sarah stood before the small gathering, old families, kids, faces etched with hope and lines of worry. "Thank you for coming. Today is important," she began, feeling her pulse quicken. "We face David and whatever is coming with open hearts and united strength. If we have faith in each other, we are stronger." Murmurs of agreement rippled through them, fueling her confidence. "Here's what I propose," she laid out her vision. "Make signs of hope and resistance. Share stories of why this place matters, why we matter. If we can rally our voices along with our bodies, we can send a message that we are not afraid." Applause erupted. Ethan stepped forward, energized. "And we invite the townsfolk. Let us turn this into a community event. We can gather everyone, celebrate what we love about this place." The crowd cheered, their voices swelling with excitement. Sarah felt a warmth envelop her, a spark igniting their collective heart. But just then, a chill ran through her. What if David had already anticipated this? What if the forces he hinted at were already moving, ready to dismantle everything they cherished? "Be careful," She cautioned, raising her voice above the clamor. We need to stay vigilant. Whatever he is planning, we can't let him divide us. As they began to disperse, a sudden sound broke through, distant sirens wailing. The noise crescendoed, an echoing reminder that something was shifting. A storm was brewing on the horizon. Sarah, what if he is ahead of us? Ethan whispered urgently, his eyes fixed on the road that led out of town. She felt an ache in her chest. Then we stand ready. Whatever darkness comes, we meet it together. With a shared glance, they both understood. The battle was far from over, it was only just beginning. As they hurried away, Sarah's heart raced. What exactly had David unleashed? Would their unity stand strong against whatever lurked in the shadows? The questions flooded her mind, but beneath it all, she felt the spark of resolve. They were ready to face whatever lay ahead, but tomorrow promised to reveal the truth that could shake their world to its core. As the morning sun broke through the clouds, illuminating the town with a warm golden glow, Sarah and Ethan walked side by side toward the center of town. The sirens had faded, but the adrenaline still surged through Sarah's veins. Each step felt heavy, but her heart grew lighter with determination. The park was bustling with activity. Families set up tables decorated with homemade signs of solidarity, children giggled as they chased each other, and the scent of freshly baked goods wafted through the air. It was a tapestry of community spirit, and it reminded Sarah why they were fighting so hard. She scanned the crowd, feeling a swell of pride. People were coming together in a way she had only dreamt of. But lingering doubt tugged at her. David wouldn't he sit idly by? What had he set in motion? Hey, Sarah! Called out Jake, one of the local teachers. He waved enthusiastically, a huge smile on his face. This is amazing. It feels like we're really doing something important. Yeah, she replied, forcing a smile back. We are. But we need to stay alert. Her backdrop of excitement felt tainted by the darkness she sensed looming just beyond their celebrations. Ethan caught her eye, his worry evident. What now? He whispered, leaning closer. We can't lose this momentum. But if he has a plan, I know, Sarah sighed. But for today, let them be joyful. We'll gather information and stay connected. It's what David hates most. They moved toward the event stage, where speakers were lined up to share stories about the community. Each story was a thread, weaving a stronger fabric of unity. Listen and learn, Sarah nudged Ethan. This is what we're fighting for. The first speaker, Mrs. Thompson, an elderly woman who had lived in town for over 50 years, stood up with a tremor of passion in her voice. This center is our heart. It's where we've laughed, cried, celebrated, and fought. It belongs to all of us. Her words danced in the air, wrapping around the crowd in a comforting embrace. The cheers swelled, and for brief moments, Sarah felt the weight of fear lift a bit. It was just what they needed: hope, determination, and community pride revitalizing their spirits as kids sprinted past like rays of sunlight. But then, a disruption shattered the moment. A black SUV rolled into view, its tires crunching on the gravel as it parked at the edge of the crowd. Sarah's heart dropped. She recognized the vehicle. It belonged to David. What is he doing here? She breathed, her voice barely audible. Ethan glanced nervously at her. Sarah, we can't let him intimidate us. We have to stand our ground. As David emerged from the vehicle, his presence loomed large, draped in confidence that was both alluring and threatening. He looked around, a smirk creeping onto his face as he took in the vibrant scene. This was his town, or at least he wanted it to be. Everyone, he called out, his voice dripping with charisma, I hope there's room for some real conversation here today. Gasps rippled through the crowd, faces turning toward him. Fear mixed with curiosity. What did he want? Sarah locked her jaw, her heart pounding furiously. She knew she had to respond, to protect what they had built. But how? What are we going to do? She murmured, Her voice wavering between fear and resolve as she grasped Ethan's arm tighter. The answer didn't come easily. David's arrogance seemed to swallow the air around them, thickening the atmosphere with unspoken threats. Somewhere deep inside, however, a fierce flame ignited. It was the spark of all the lives intertwined in this community. They wouldn't be afraid, not today. As she stepped forward, adrenaline coursing through her, a new fire burned within her. Was she ready to confront him? Did she really understand what they were fighting for? The moment was taut with possibilities, and Sarah felt the air shift. "Let us see just how brave he thinks he is," she whispered to herself, determination flooding her once more. What would David reveal in this unexpected confrontation? The battle for their home had truly begun. In that moment, the stage was set for a showdown that neither side could have anticipated. Would Sarah's courage lead them to victory, or would David unveil truths that could shatter their resolve? The crowd's murmur grew louder, a mix of uncertainty and expectation simmering in the air. Sarah's heart raced, the tension thick enough to slice through. She scanned the familiar faces, many filled with fear and confusion. They were the same people who had laughed and cried together. They deserved better than this. That eye in the shadow of the stage, David smiled, an unsettling smile that raised goosebumps on her skin. "I think we all know why I'm here," he began, his voice cutting through the crowd's chatter. "You've been busy trying to save your precious community center, haven't you? But let us talk about the real issue. That's not the only thing at stake here. That's not what we're here for." Someone shouted from the back, the voice shaky but defiant. "Is that so?" David's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Then what would you call this?" He gestured toward a large poster board displaying news clippings about the community center's potential sale. A wave of gasps swept through the crowd. Sarah felt herself flush. It was true, the news had spread. But they were fighting to protect what belonged to them, to preserve the life within their community. She took a step forward, feeling Ethan's steady presence beside her. "We're fighting for our home, David," Sarah shouted, her voice stronger than she felt. "The community center is more than just a building. It's where we come together, where we support one another. You can't just waltz in and tear it apart." David's expression shifted slightly, annoyance flashing through his calm demeanor. "You think this gathering will change anything? Your voices, those whispering concerns, will vanish just like that. I have power, influence, resources. You're fighting an uphill battle. Then maybe it's time for others to stand beside us." A thunderous applause erupted as Mrs. Thompson returned to the stage, her spirit ignited. "You've underestimated the heart of this community. We will rise up against threats, big or small. Nothing can stop us when we stand as one." Sarah's heart soared. This was the moment she had hoped for, a communal roar against oppression. They were gathering strength, drawing from each other's courage. They would stand against deceit and confront it together, but the confrontation was far from over. David pushed forward, a storm brewing behind his eyes. "Really? You think unity can shield you? What happens when I reveal secrets you've buried? Secrets that would shake this town to its core?" The crowd quieted, expressions shifting from defiance to shock. Whispers fluttered through, battling Sarah's racing thoughts. Who had skeletons? Who would be exposed? What would David do next? The confidence she felt seconds ago began to dissipate. Ethan squeezed her hand, grounding her. "Stay focused. This is about the community, not about the past," he reminded her, the determination in his eyes unwavering. "We will face whatever you throw at us," Sarah challenged David, her voice fierce. "We're not afraid of you. Fear is a natural response. But tell me," David leaned in, a predatory glint in his eye. "Are you prepared for the ripple effect of those secrets? The truth can destroy reputations, hurt families, even your precious community." The crowd's energy fluctuated, the atmosphere shifting dangerously. Is that what it would take to break them? A dark revelation that could lame their fight? Sarah's stomach nodded. Did they have enough ammo to counter David's potent arsenal of secrets? In this moment of darkness, she felt the familiar flame reignite within her. We don't need to hide from truth. We stand for honesty and love. She cried out, instinctively knowing that nothing would keep the community down, not even in the face of David's looming threat. As she scanned the sea of faces, she could see allies forming. They would not be played against each other, but as David turned to address the crowd, a glimmer of triumph in his eyes, Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. If the truth held power, what would David unleash next? What secrets lay ready to explode, and who would bear the brunt of his wrath? The atmosphere thickened, and Sarah could feel every heartbeat pulsating through the crowd. David's eyes narrowed, calculating, as he prepared to unveil his next move. The murmur of apprehension whispered like wind through the leaves. Would he really expose some terrible secret? Let us take a moment to appreciate the history of this community, David said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Oh, but wait, what if that history isn't as pristine as you think? He paused, letting the anticipation hang, and then pointed directly at Mrs. Thompson. What about your late husband's dealings, huh? Those financial missteps? Or should I mention the time your son got into trouble with the law? Gasps erupted, a wave of alarm sweeping through the audience. Sarah's thoughts spun. She never knew Mrs. Thompson had a son with a record. The air felt colder, heavier. Mrs. Thompson's face drained of color, and her voice trembled as she spoke. Those are all in the past. They don't define who we are now. The crowd shifted restlessly, uncertainty breaking the united front they had formed moments before. Exactly. They don't define you. David laughed, a hollow sound that grated against Sarah's resolve. But they will define your ability to fight back, won't they? Who will stand with you when your own neighbors are whispering behind your back? Ethan stepped forward, holding Sarah's hand tightly. We all have our struggles, David. But that won't stop us from fighting for what's right. This community is stronger than any of your pathetic attempts to divide us. David's eyes flashed with annoyance. Is that your brightest move? Feelings over facts. You're really banking on that? The crowd hesitated, caught in the crossfire of fear and solidarity. Sarah's heart raced as she felt doubt creeping in. Would they succumb to David's game? Every second stretched painfully, and she couldn't allow the momentum to slip away. Maybe some of us have made mistakes. Maybe our pasts aren't perfect. But isn't that what makes us human? She shouted, her voice echoing across the park. We've fought for what we love. We've cried, we've forgiven, and we've grown. Aren't those the stories we want to share? The crowd began to stir, murmurs rising as they remembered their reasons for being there. Sarah felt the fire again. She took a deep breath, channeling all her anger and hope into her next words. This community is full of love. For every mistake, there's a lesson. For every hurt, there's healing, and we're here to support each other, not tear each other down. Ethan squeezed her hand tighter. Hope was blooming again, and one person began to clap. Then another, and soon it became a thundering applause. It washed over her like a warm wave, filling the cracks that David had threatened to break wide open. But David's smile twisted into something darker, a flash of desperation behind his bravado. Ah, the power of manipulation. How poetic, he said, but beneath the sarcasm flickered an edge of angst that Sarah noticed. Keep clapping, folks. David's voice rose above the noise. While you're at it, why don't we take a look at what truly lies beneath that warm facade? The crowd quieted again, unease mingling with the earlier energy. Just then, a flicker of movement caught Sarah's eye. Near the edge of the crowd, a hesitant figure stepped forward, drawing closer. It was someone she recognized, someone who had been a quiet part of their community for years. Wait. I have something to say. The figure called out, their voice barely rising above the silence. Sarah's heart raced again, this time in anticipation. Who were they about to reveal? What could this new voice bring to the dire confrontation they were facing? And the ultimate question hung in the air: would this be the turning point that would either bind their community tighter or unravel it completely? The figure stepped into the light, trembling but determined. It was Tommy, a young man who had spent his childhood in this town. He was relatable, an everyman whose story would resonate deeply. "I know I haven't spoken much before," he said, his voice wavering at first but gaining strength as he continued. "But I've watched as this place shaped me. And I'm not ashamed of it. I've made mistakes, sure. I got into trouble. But I learned." With each word, a sense of solidarity surged. They were listening, truly listening. "This community forgave me when I didn't deserve it," he added, his voice breaking slightly. "And that's what matters. I owe my growth to everyone here. You see, David, it's not about hiding our pasts. It's about what we do with them. Each of us has a story, pain, and pride wrapped together, and it makes us stronger." A wave of murmurs washed over the crowd. Hope ignited like wildfire, painting their faces brighter. Sarah's heart filled with warmth. This was the moment they needed. This was the fight worth having. "We're not perfect," she shouted, "but together we can face whatever you throw our way." Ethan stepped forward, a smile breaking through his earlier worry. "Tommy is right. We've built each other up. Our past doesn't dictate our future. We define who we are, as a community." Suddenly, old stories were shared, tears and laughter spilling into the air, weaving a rich tapestry of life that David could not tear apart. The voices rose, passionate and united. A woman stood up. "I remember when my family nearly lost our home. This community helped us. We lifted each other up." A noisy chorus began to echo among them, everyone jumping in. "We are family. We stand together." The tide was shifting, and Sarah felt the fear subside. But David's expression darkened. "This is nothing but a pathetic show," he muttered under his breath, but she could see the crack in his facade. Even he began to look uncertain. "Pathetic? Really? Look around." Ethan challenged, pointing to the faces brimming with hope. "This is power, David. This is what real strength looks like." David leered, but uncertainty flickered across his face. "Your unity won't shield you from the truth. It will shield us against fear." Sarah countered, heart pounding. "You've tried to bury us in shadows, but shadows fade in the light of togetherness." "Light?" David spat. "You're just a group of misguided neighbors clinging to false ideals. What will your little signs do when the real challenges come?" A deafening silence momentarily fell over the crowd. But then a child, no older than 8, raised his small sign high: "We love our center." It was pure, unfiltered hope, a reminder of the innocent courage that melded their dreams together. Laughter erupted, and everyone began shouting in unison. "Together." They chanted. David's expression shifted, and for just a moment, fear flashed across his face, but he quickly masked it with arrogance. "Is that really your counter? A child's drawing? It's weak." But the crowd wouldn't be shaken. They stood taller, gathering strength from every voice. "Love and community are what make us strong," Tommy shouted, his voice rising above the tumult. Then a familiar face pushed through the crowd: Sarah's ex-husband. David looked at him like an unexpected ally had appeared. "Now there's a man who knows how to take what he wants," David sneered, but Sarah sensed something had changed in him, too. "David, this community may not be perfect, but it breeds resilience." "I left, and I regretted it every day," he admitted. "I need to make amends." Gasps rippled through the town, but beneath them was an air of understanding. "I failed my family. But I see what this community can do. It's never too late to change." The crowd shifted again. This wasn't just Sarah or Ethan or even Tommy anymore. This was everyone, flexing their voices as one, rich with the stories and resilience they had woven together. They had transformed David's threat into their uprising. As murmurs of hope grew more substantial, visibly shaken, David sought retreat. "You think this is over? You have no idea who you're dealing with." His confident demeanor started to crumble. "Who are you?" Sarah challenged, stepping forward, power surging through her. "A man who threatens instead of inspires. Is that real power? Or is that just a shell you hide behind?" Silence fell. And in that moment, the tide turned. All their fears coalesced into resolve. David's grip was slipping. "It ends here." Sarah's voice rang clear, echoing through the remaining doubt in the crowd. "Let us show him what real strength looks like." With that, she raised her hands high, and one by one, others mirrored her. Their collective spirit filled the air like a heartbeat pounding in unison. Emotion surged through Sarah as she felt their unity swell. They were no longer just a town. They were a force unbreakable and vibrant. Every laugh, every memory, every lesson paved their way toward resilience that would shatter David's facade. David took a step back, unease rolling across his features. "You think I'm afraid?" He shouted impotently, but the emotion in his voice betrayed him. "No, David," Sarah shot back, "it's you that has reason to be afraid. Watch what we can build when we stand together, watch us rise." And in that moment, she knew. They were ready to face any challenge, to protect their home, to live their truth. Their future stretched out before them, illuminated not by David's shadows but by their own shining light. Victory wasn't just a possibility, it was within their grasp. As they turned to face the crowd, they felt every heartbeat carry hope. And as they looked toward the horizon, they saw a future where love triumphed over judgment, a true testament to the power of community. Everything they had fought for culminated in that indomitable spirit. And as their voices rose as one, the laughter, pain, and triumph of their intertwined stories reverberated. Sarah smiled, tears glistening as she squeezed Ethan's hand. "Whatever lies ahead, I know we'll face it together." "I wouldn't want it any other way," he replied, his eyes sparkling with hope. With that, they finally embraced their tomorrow. And as laughter and cheers erupted, the world around them shimmered just a little bit brighter. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to this channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand how vital it is to support the channel through these actions.